supercars give me enormous freedom to do what we want to do. So we try and come up with all the concepts and ideas and data, and then Motec, who make all the data systems, help us with a lot of the programming and what have you.
There might just be a 0.02 in this corner, and when you add those 02s over a period of 10, 20, 30 corners, all of a sudden you've got half a second, 0.7 of a second, which makes all the difference.
Both these guys have a remarkable feel for the car and the tyre on the road, and that's a great asset in our sport. So, you know, get ready for an era, I think, where Payne and Woody are going to be near the front of our grid consistently.
DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
DSPN, Bathurst. Wow, what a race that was on Sunday. It's being called one of the best ever. And I suppose when those labels get thrown around, we all think, okay, well, which were the ones that we really loved? How far back do we have to go? Well, who better to talk to about all of this than our great mate, Larko, Mark Larkham. And you know him and you love him on the screen. I've always said about you, Larko, that you're not only one of the best in the business, but you have this beautiful ability to translate what it is that you know, that you're hearing, that you're seeing, and deliver it to us, the sporting public, in a way that has never been anything other than just a mate sitting there on the couch explaining it to you. So thank you again for joining us. And just in terms of that race, let's kick it off with that. How good was that on Sunday?
Thank you, Marty. You flatter me as always, mate. You know what? I did a little piece, you might recall, just before the start of the race. And the words I said were, this, I reckon, could be a classic because Mother Nature's coming to the mountain. Now, you know, I'm not clever at all, but, you know, we all know when you get thrown a little bit of weather. I must say the race was shaping up really good before that anyway, but I would rank that, you know, probably the only thing that goes close in my time would be the Wing Cup running out of fuel, you know, Mostert on the last lap. I mean, we've had some crackers, but wow, you know, where do you start? The lap 60, lap 40, lap 80.
Okay, I'm going to start.
Calls on tyres.
I'm going to start right at the end, where after 160 something laps, or maybe about 159 laps, you got three guys. The weather's just turned ugly. You can't even see at the top of the mountain. You got three guys just going hammer and tong at each other after 158 laps, and it goes down to the last lap where there's a 5-second penalty, and even he's still trying to be in front Golding and actually win the race, even though he can't win the race. That's what I love more than anything else. You can sit there and watch for 6, 7, 8 hours, and it goes right down to the final couple of corners.
Yeah, well, four guys actually, wasn't it, Marty? And you know, I try and articulate. I did a little piece in the middle of the race there where I put the data up to try and show you the data from the car in the wet versus the dry, and articulate just how hard it is. And I can't even do that. No one can articulate the skill level that we saw. And trust me, I've been talking with other industry people since. In fact, I was having a long chat with Cooper Murray last night on the phone. But just industry types. I had dinner with Scafie on Sunday night. People that have been around this forever, and we are genuinely hand on heart, blown away. Utterly blown away by the skill level of those young blokes, right? All young guys on a track that's soaking wet with a little bit of tram track here and there at the absolute limit of adhesion, like under braking, cornering and acceleration under every corner. And when I say that, I mean it, Marty. So when you put your foot near the brake, you brake to the extent that there's no grip, right? You do that all the way into the brake. Then you turn to the point that there's no grip, and then you start accelerating, and you accelerate to the extent that there's no wheel spin. So you've got to keep it at that threshold on every corner, on every lap. Now, you imagine doing that in the wet with three other guys around you, and you're going for the biggest prize by far in motorsport in this part of the world. And all of those young blokes absolutely held it together. Just remarkable on any measure of sporting eliteness, in my view.
And the one word that just screams out at me is courage. Just to have the biggest nuts in the place to do that as well.
Yep.
You know, Larko, I just couldn't believe, I mean, going airborne, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm trying to get my head around that. But just watching these things fishtail at the back, just constantly going like this. And, you know, you must know that as a driver. You're feeling that in your bum, aren't you, that thing's going like that, yet you're still hammering it.
100%. And the hardest one, and that's why we call it the mountain. That's why the mountain's so great. So when you come up out of BP cutting, which is like turn 4, little tight left-hander, once you come out of there, from there all the way to Skyline is average 200 k's an hour. Average, right? So you're honking through there and down through that grate that I talk about, where you dip down to the ground just before you get to McPhillamy Park, and all of that. It's all this, and it is. The car's sliding, and then you get the Skyline. You can't see the road. The road genuinely disappears beneath you. And you saw the fog there, Mark. You saw how Davey Reynolds was saying, I mean, the visibility, I tell you, they must have been awfully close to calling that race, because usually visibility, I mean, there's no visibility meter that they put up. Typically, they judge it if one flag point can see to the next flag point.
Yeah.
And by God, that must have been getting hard. So throw that into the mix, and then you go down through the Dipper and the S's, and because the car's got momentum, because it's going downhill, and particularly Forest Elbow where Mark Winterbottom crashed, you feel like your tyres aren't even there, because you've got this 1.5 tons of mass going down the hill, and you're trying to turn, and your tyres just don't want to grip up. So again, I cannot emphasise enough the skill. And then you've got to do 290 k's an hour, only 300 down the straight, right? And there's blinding spray coming off the cars. I've crashed at 300 at Bathurst in the rain years ago, because you just can't see in front of you, and you end up just running straight into the car in front of you. So, oh wow! I mean, the sport's in good. It's in good shape, Mark. When you get good young blokes like that, there's our future.
When Matt Payne wins this race, and the only comparison I can kind of bring is Stephen Bradbury in 2002, where he comes into the last corner and the 3 guys in front of him crash, and he gets so. Payne said that he was almost expecting something like that to happen because of the way that they were racing. These guys were going to take a risk at some stage. They bumped each other, and I can't believe that one of them didn't hit the wall at that stage, but he races through on the inside. My big question is, overall, did he deserve to win that race right at the end there, the way that he was driving?
I would put my hand on my heart, Martin, and I'd say any one of those 4 guys deserved to win that race at the end, including Davey Reynolds, coming at him hard. I said it just before the start of the race, I had a bit of a joke. I pulled off Matty Payne's boots, and there they were. There was webs between his toes, right? So, he's a duck in water, that kid. He's utterly brilliant, like so many New Zealand drivers are. We've spoken about it before, Martin, haven't we? And he was another great example of a Kiwi in the wet. We often say about Matt, his brain is beyond his years, so he has that ability, and that's what you got to do as a race driver. He hung back, and when 2 blokes are having a ding dong like that, it very, very often is the case that you're gonna win out of that. But to win out of that, very critically, you've got to stay online and keep your pace rolling. So when they have a little wobble, just a little touch and a little wobble, which inevitably happens, you've got to have the momentum at that time to make the pass. And he did. So he judged that very well. But, I mean, can we just talk about that incident for a sec, Martin? I think that was what a fascinating contest. Put yourself in the car, pull the helmet on. You're one of those young blokes. The greatest prize is, 4.5 laps away. I take nothing away from Golding having a crack at that time.
I had to,
Yeah. Beardo, 100%, another Kiwi, as Beardo always does. That's why I support him all the time. He's the best at the driving standards thing by a mile, has always been the best at it. He always makes the right call. He knows. He's got a great instinct for it as well. But he got the helicopter shot first to make sure he was right, and he did make the right call. You've got to be up to the B pillar at the turn-in point, and the fact is Golding wasn't. But good on him for having a crack. But 2 observations. If you could have your time again, I would sit down in Golding and say, great lessons for both Cooper Murray and Golding in that situation. For Golding, he clearly had the car to win that race. He was the fastest of that group, in my view. And through all that changing addition at the back end, he was consistently the man. I would calculate there's roughly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe a dozen more opportunities he had between that point and the end of the race, where I reckon he could have affected the move without taking that risk, right?
That's a learn. Corners, that's right? A big learn,
So that's a big learning, and he just perhaps lost the race because there's so many incidents happened with that move that he tried to pull off. That's danger zone, right? We see it there all the time. And I said to Cooper Murray, I said, good learnings for him, because I saw his words after the race. Wow, again, these guys are mature, just measured, took it all in, said, it was great to lead, the last part of the race there. That one got away, but I'll be back. And little moments like what happened on Sunday springboard a guy like Cooper Murray's career. I've been watching for a year now, and he's got Barry Ryan and I talk about him a bit, and he said, we just got to get him to fire. And man, didn't he fire, right? But I said to him last night, because you're in the right, doesn't mean you take the corner. And by that I mean, had he have just yielded a little bit, because it was his corner, he was in front. So under the rule book, 100%, it's his corner. But that doesn't mean you take it, because he was already on the inside for the next corner. Had he have just given Golding a little bit of room, Golding probably wouldn't have gone, he wouldn't have had the momentum to go past. Cooper would have been on the inside for the next one, and they could have fought at the next corner.
Right.
So although the judgment was in Cooper's favour, it didn't help him win the race.
Right.
So sometimes you've got to be able to read that and know, maybe I just lose this little battle to win the war.
What does it do for Matt Payne at the age of 23, who has his career up to date has been great, but it hasn't been spectacular, especially in supercars, to pull that off now? What does that do for him today, tomorrow, and in the next couple of years?
Well, I think it elevates him and some of his form shown this year. He's now elevated. He's just a genuine championship contender in our series. There's no two ways about it. I mean, the guy's got a really special talent. Garth and I talk a lot about him, because I work with Garth, obviously, in the TV world. Garth drives with him. And Garth's, because he's young. That's the thing we forget, Martin. These blokes are young.
23.
I remember what I was doing at 23. I was a dickhead, mucking around with my motorbikes, crashing cars, doing all sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it just blows me away how, and it's not just the gift he has with his ability to feel the car, which he does, and feel the tyres. And that's a gift that, Craig Lowndes had it, Peter Brock had it, Jim Rich has it. Not everyone has it. A lot of drivers like Mark Scaife, Marcus Ambrose, Garth Tander, they're more grafters. They work really hard at their craft. But guys like Matty and Lowndes and Richo, they have this gift, and I've said it to you, I call it their internal G meter.
There you go.
It sits in the right spot.
Yep.
Their body has this remarkable sense of what the tyres are doing all the time. So he's got to translate that into making the right decisions with setup, what he does on the track, qualifying setups, all those things. And he's now a genuine championship contender at 23 years old. Wow, that's pretty special. And I like the guy. He's got, two of my favourite guys in the pit lane, and I'm not saying it because I'm on New Zealand TV, over radio. I say it all the time in the telecast, are Woody and Matt Payne.
How about Woody? Was it? Yeah. Wow. We're all gutted for him when his car crapped out. With 20-something laps to go, and you saw the reaction from Greg as well, didn't you, in the pits, who's, obviously mentoring him in that, and he was just gutted as well. It was just one of those things where, damn motor racing, it's cruel to be kind sometimes, isn't it?
It certainly is, but they're, it's great sports people, great business people. It only toughens them up for next time, So he's got a big future in our sport. Both of them have got a lot of spunk. They've got great characters. Funnily enough, they've both got that same gift. I asked both their engineers. I think it was at Topor last year. We did a little piece, and both their engineers, unprompted, both said the same thing. Both these guys have a remarkable feel for the car and the tyre on the road. And that's a great asset in our sport. So, get ready for an era, I think, where Payne and Woody are going to be near the front of our grid consistently. And that's exciting. You
mentioned Garth, and 6 titles now for him. That's extraordinary. And I know it kind of gets a bit lost because he's the co-driver and everything, but just how special a talent is that guy as well? Because he did exactly, again, this is what I really love about these guys who get back into the car at the age that they are, where they've actually, they aren't the main guy, but they can be humble enough to get back in and do the job. I thought he was extraordinary.
It's knowing your place in the team, isn't it? And one of the great assets and I've been in this position, when you've got to nominate your co-driver for Bathurst, you're always faced with these 2 distinct choices. Do you go for a mature, maybe just retired full-time driver that knows his job in this task, and that's to hand the car back in good shape, keep it up the front on the lead lap to the main driver? or do you get a young guy who arguably might be a bit faster across the mountain all day, but with that comes risk because he clearly has to make a name for himself using this opportunity, as you would expect him to want to do, where a Tander has already made the name for himself.
Yeah.
So I thought Garth's contribution, and what you don't see with Garth is his bigger contribution is outside the car. I often say, Martin, Garth should have had, and just parking Bathurst, and I've said this to him, he's a guy, and I raced with him for most of his career. He should have had many more championship trophies in his cabinet than he actually got, because he is one of the most intelligent, articulate, well-resourced as a race driver, all the assets that you need, understands the car technically, what he needs, how to make the team function, a real leader guy in the team. And, you know, I think he actually should have put a lot more trophies in his cabinet, just for a whole lot of reasons it didn't happen. So it's great then to see him park the 6th Bathurst trophy, puts himself alongside, Perkins and Scaife. Pretty elite group.
It's not a bad name to me, yeah.
Bathurst winners.
The other thing I've got to mention, and this is, you know, watching it at home, the whole package, the way that it's presented is just brilliant. It really is. It's faultless. It's flawless. And the technology now, Larko, every time we talk, it seems to me the technology gets even better. And there's a couple of things that you were doing there. One was the comparison of how they were driving wet to dry. The other, I love those little graphs and worms where you put drivers side by side. And the fascination is that, you know, it's almost they're driving exactly the same. There might just be a 0.02 in this corner. And when you add those 0.02s over a period of 10, 20, 30 corners, all of a sudden you've got half a second, 0.7 of a second, which makes all the difference. That kind of stuff for us as a viewing public is, I don't know who's the guy behind it or who's the director or whoever it is, but I'd love to give a shout out to those guys because they make the viewing experience it is so worthwhile, you know, sitting there for 6 or 7 hours. And that's because of all of that. It's not just watching the cars go zoom, 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 zoom past. It's every little aspect attached to it. You know I love all this stuff.
Well, I certainly don't seek any credit, Marty, but it's me and my offside of Malcolm. So Malcolm's my graphics guy. I dragged him when I was back at 10 years ago, doing motorsport back at 10. He was there, and I dragged him out of there when I went to supercars. I said, no, he's coming with me. And Malcolm, any of my little stories you see in the Hino Hub, me and Malcolm work on the graphics, and have a girl, Emma, who works with me on the stories. So we're our own little sort of team. We do our own thing, and that's why I love my job, Marty. Supercars give me enormous freedom to do what we want to do. So we try and come up with all the concepts and ideas and data, and then Motec, who make all the data systems, have helped us with a lot of the programming and what have you. So Malcolm and I, and Malcolm's not a data guy. I've looked at data all my life as a race guy, but we have this incredible privilege, and I used it on the weekend, that we sit there and we can actually, it's only us and Supercars technical staff, we get to see the data overlays of team to team, car to car.
Right.
Teams don't get that. So, which I said in the thing, so Brody Kostecki can't look at Brock Feeney's data and overlay it and see how he's going against Brock. Those guys up the front couldn't see each other's data to see how the other team or where they're weak or strong or whatever. Hence, when I dragged Brody and his engineer George Cummins into the Hino Hub to have a go through their top 10 shootout lap, George, the engineer, it was quite funny. And I know George well. I got him out of university 25 years ago. And I was laughing because George is sitting there. He wasn't paying attention to the interview on TV. He was mesmerised by the data on the screen because it was an overlay of Kostecki and Feeney, and George doesn't get to see that, obviously. Right. And so that was kind of funny. And initially, we got a little bit of pushback a while back from teams with data, and one team on the weekend did. I said, hey guys, stop. It's 2025. Mm-hmm. Data in television is coming like a freight train.
Yeah.
So if you think you're stopping it now, it's just not happening. It's too entertaining not to do. We will never show to the people at home, or so anyone can see, how they did it. We're not going to talk about what spring rates they put in or what their settings are, or we're very careful with the cameras. I never expose their, getting under. I never expose where their suspension settings are. In fact, I got the DJR boys to come in and change the settings on that Mustang that I had in the Hino Hub to make sure we didn't point a camera in under there and show where they bolt their suspension on, because that's a real tuning device, right? So, yep. But data is more check this out, this is what happened.
Larko, when it comes, you mentioned Kostecki there, when it comes to what he did, where he just rear ends, how does that actually happen in a race? A guy with so much experience, and it wasn't like it was, so hosing he couldn't see or anything like that. Is that just something goes wrong? What exactly?
Yeah, I haven't got to the bottom of that story. I ran straight in actually to check the data, because the data will tell us a lot. Where was he on the brake pedal compared to the lap before, whatever. And unfortunately, and same, we had a data drop out at that point. So wouldn't you know it? I mean, it happens sometimes in that weather. You get different dropouts around the circuit. So I never got to it. But my observations of that, I think he was out. That was his first flying lap, if I recall. So his tyres still would have been very, very cold. As you saw, there's a lot of traffic around him, had a lot on his mind, and it looks to me like maybe the impact of the other cars around him is. If I was making commentary on it, which I don't like to do without knowing, but it looked to me like he missed his brake marker. Simple as that. And it wouldn't take, either he missed it or maybe he used the same brake marker on cold tyres.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
He might have only been a metre out. And I gave him a point earlier. But once you lock a wheel, and just for people at home, the fastest way to stop a car is not with your wheels locked, right? The fastest way to stop a car is with your wheels rotating on the threshold of grip, right? Locked tyres have no grip. So when you're in your road car and a kangaroo drops you, well, not over there, but a kid runs across the road, don't just thump on your brakes and lock them all up and have smoke coming off, and that's not the fastest way to stop a car. So if he locked his brakes just momentarily, Martin, then the car keeps momentum going and it's hard to stop after that.
Couple of questions, we'll let you go, and I thank you so much for your time again, mate. So what is the, we've just come off an AFL Grand Final, which was spectacular in terms of the television ratings, a Reece Walsh in the NRL Grand Final, which even surpassed that. And then you get this. You've got an Ashes cricket coming up as well. But just in terms of motorsport, you're trying to squeeze this product in amongst all of those other products for the sporting public. And I know there's a lot of fans who cross over and all of that kind of thing. But what does this race do for the series this year, the whole circuit this year, plus also for the future of Bathurst? It's not like it really needed it, but I just felt like it's come along at the right time that you have a race like this.
I reckon 4 big things going on at the moment, mate. Just so from Bathurst on the weekend and what that did in terms of event amongst those. Like, we got the viewing figures yesterday, I mean, off the dial.
Right.
Just absolutely
doesn't surprise
fantastic.
me.
Over 5 million viewers. You know how all that stat stuff works, but that's the number that's thrown around. Just amazing. The second thing, I hope you saw shots which just blew me away. Someone said on the weekend it's the biggest camping and caravanning thing in Australia. Have you seen? I think there was something like 7,000 camping.
Yeah, that's what they. Yeah.
Don't quote me on.
Yeah.
I heard someone say something like I think is it 38,000 campers or something.
Something crazy like that. Yeah.
It's just phenomenal. So the picture of that, I call it a pilgrimage.
Good
to
word.
the mountain of Australians is unlike any other sport anywhere. I mean, it's just a remarkable thing. So I'm glad we showcased that. But so the event, let's say that's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, the final series, right? So now we're into the final series, Martin. So the momentum we've got now is going to continue, because this is a first.
Yeah, great call.
Now we go. So everyone's clear. All the combatants are still in the race. We're not going to the next race with only 10 cars, but 11th downward is sort of they're going to battle out for 11th downward. But the top 10 are the only ones that can win the championship. Then after we leave the Gold Coast and go to Sandown, it'll only be the top 7.
And then it's Adelaide after that. Yeah.
And then we go to the Adelaide for the final, and only 4 can win the championship.
Awesome.
So we keep eliminating. So I reckon that's the momentum in amongst that. And think of the skullduggery with teammates and the implications they're going to have in amongst it. I reckon it's just going to be fantastic. So we're going to go to Adelaide, because 26 out of the last 50 touring car championships have been decided before we got to the last race. So that will never happen again, right? You're going to go to the last race with 4 blokes in it, and because the points all get levelled.
Yep.
And they carry some bonus points from the previous race. So the maximum gap between all the guys racing at the last round will be 50 points. So it's wide open for everyone. And then the final one, the third one, is Toyota.
Yeah, of course.
Toyota are about to ride.
Yeah,
like that
right,
is.
Yeah.
Mate, I'm on the farm here. I live in the bush. Everyone, me included, Everyone has Toyotas here. Everyone's got a Land Cruiser Ute. It's just standard issue. So I reckon there's a big part of the public, and I see the same over there, that are going to engage that maybe haven't been Holden or Ford or GM and Ford people. And so I think so the future looks pretty damn good.
Such a pleasure as always catching up with you, mate. We could talk about this for a very long time. I've already taken up too much of yours. Appreciate you always, man. Thank you.
We're car guys, Marty. Love it. Cheers, mate.
DSPN.